Within the last hour or so, the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has announced the date for the next general election in the UK. Speaking outside his official residence at Downing Street, Mr. Sunak said it would take place on the 4th of July in the summer. He said he's proud of what his government has achieved and that the question now is who to trust as voters prepare to decide Britain's future. The statement came after a day of mounting speculation in Westminster. And we'll have more on that story in a moment. But staying in Britain, an inquiry into what's been described as the biggest miscarriage of justice in the UK resumed today in London. Between 1999 and 2015, hundreds of people who ran post offices were wrongly prosecuted for stealing after faulty software said money was missing from branch accounts. Many went to prison for false accounting and theft, and several were financially ruined. Some took their own lives. Today, for the first time, the woman who was running the post office for much of the time, Paula Venables, has been giving evidence. She began 3 days of testimony with an apology. The Rise correspondent Lape Olarinoye has been following events in the UK, both at the inquiry and at Downing Street, and she joins me now on the line from London. First of all, Lape, we're hearing that the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has asked for Parliament to be dissolved next week ahead of a general election that he's announced for the 4th of July. Tell us more.
Well, as you can imagine, Charles, the whole nation, as well as the political landscape, is a bit taken aback by this announcement. It has been on the radar since the ending of last year that there will be a general election at some point this year. It was always surrounded by a question mark. This time around, though, the Prime Minister has shocked the nation, particularly those in his cabinet and his wider party, of the 4th of July. Of course, it comes as the incumbent Conservatives faced a shocking defeat across board during the local. So for some, especially the public, this isn't a surprise. And for his main opposition party, the Labour Party, this isn't really a surprise. But he has been very much reassuring the wider British public of the fact that the economies are around the turn. He's reminding voters of that the Conservative Party under his government over the last year or so. So for some in his party, this was an unnecessary announcement, but for the rest of the country, it couldn't come any sooner.
Indeed, that seems to gel with what we're hearing. So who are the main candidates and what are their selling points?
Interesting question you asked there. Well, the main candidate, of course, is long-running opposition party, the Labour Party, as well as the known, but not necessarily have historical wins, the Liberal Democrats. Under the leadership of Sir Ed Davey, and of course the Labour Party under the leadership of Sir Keir Starmer. Now, he has been saying in particular that he wants to return the country to the service of the working people. He's had a lot to say about what he wants to do for the working people, flexible working, which has historically been the bedrock of the Labour Party, working closely with unions, returning power to the workers, who, by the way, have been facing the brunt of a growing cost of living crisis, the pandemic, the effects of the pandemic on workers, and of course, a skyrocketing recession, which is countries out of. The Workers' Party, the Labour Party, should I say, is really focusing on rights for workers. The Liberal Democrats, on the other hand, is somewhere in between those same policies. Now, I would say lesser known Green Party, who have become very much known over the years or election cycles, as much as they have been so popular with the younger voters as well. Of course, they're focusing very much on climate changes, the environmental changes and policies that need to be changed. This is something, by the way, that has become very popular, especially with leaders. And amidst every year, we're seeing different types of natural disasters take place. this has become the forefront of their campaign. Now, there's other devolved governments as well, and parties like the SNP as well. Their main policy, of course, is trying to create an independent Scotland, very much separate issue. But in terms of front runners, those are the main front runners. The Labour Party do think that they've got this in the bag, so to speak, but anything can happen.
Indeed. Let's turn to the other big story out of Britain, Lape, which is the post office scandal. Hundreds of people who ran post offices wrongly prosecuted for stealing after faulty software said money was missing from branch accounts. Tell us more about that scandal and about the woman who was leading the post office at the time, Paula Venables, her role. It's been called the biggest miscarriage of justice in living British memory.
Yes, actually, it's quite timely amongst other scandals that we know. The blood scandal has been going on as well. But let's stick to, the post office scandal. Now, it dates back to 1999 to 2015, where it's post office staff, they're commonly known as sub postmasters and sub postmistresses, were said to have essentially been at the brunt of a faulty account system.
Well, we apologize for that. There seems to be a break in the connection with Lape, which is rather disappointing because this is a very interesting story, but I'll try and summarize it as much as I can for you. Paula Venables, the woman that we're talking about, was the head of the post office, and up till very recently she had insisted that the post office had done nothing wrong and that there had been no miscarriage of justice. So she started giving testimony at the inquiry today, and obviously her inquiry, her testimony will be crucial. I understand that Lape is back with us. Lape, let me move you along then. Let me move you along because I mean we've kind of lost a bit of time. Paula Venables was the head of the post office. She had earlier said that the post office had done nothing wrong and there'd been no miscarriage of justice. How crucial will the testimony she's giving be? And do we know what she said so far? Do we know what she's...
We do know very briefly, Charles. Apologies about the tech issue there. What we do know so far is that she is said to be at the face of an inquiry, a public inquiry, where she's being questioned by a KC. She has so far been very emotional and repeatedly spoken about her knowledge, the fact that she wasn't informed about any of these strong prosecutions or issues, or even the man at the center of this, a sub postmaster that actually committed suicide as a result of it. So she's been very emotional. She has cried, but she has repeatedly stated that she didn't know anything about it. But there's some damning evidence against her. There are emails, there are documents which the BBC broadcaster has said to have uncovered to suggest that this was all very much covered up. There are said to be millions of pounds to not discuss this. So there is some damning evidence against her, especially because she was at the helm. But on the other hand, she has, of course, relinquished her CBE and has been quite vocal about her ignorance on this. But she is still being very much held to account. The fact that she doesn't know what's happening to subordinates and something as damning as this is hard to believe that did not appear on her radar at any moment.
Lape, we'll have to leave it there. The comms is not brilliant, I'm afraid, but you are consistently brilliant. So we thank you for taking the time to give us the bare bones of those two very important stories out of the UK. Lape Olarinoye is Arise correspondent. She was talking to me there on the line from London.